Tonight, Canada's big pledge to strengthen its sovereignty in the Arctic.
We must invest in Canada's north to defend our sovereignty.
Billions in new funding to boost the military presence, and which ally will help Canada achieve the mission. Plus, the sudden jump in inflation that's alarming Canadians.
I have 4 small children, and it's hard.
We will destroy Hamas.
Israel's renewed warning after shattering a fragile ceasefire in Gaza. And Trump's high-stakes call with Vladimir Putin, the concessions and conditions for a truce in Ukraine.
Putin, I don't think will stop until he is stopped.
Could warming U.S.-Russia ties spill onto the ice? Also, a big splashdown.
Crew 9 back on Earth.
A long-awaited homecoming and...
dolphins, actually.
the playful welcome dance in the water.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Todd Vanderhayden.
Good evening. Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Canada's far north today with a big announcement on Arctic security to expand the military's presence there and to better monitor the threat from countries like China and Russia. CTV's Mike Lecouteur is traveling with Carney, who's trying to assert greater Canadian sovereignty over a very contested region.
With much of the focus on securing Canada's southern border with the United States, Prime Minister Mark Carney came north to send that same message of sovereignty, while at the same time announcing an increased presence of Canada's military in Iqaluit. Carney announced the allocation of $6 billion in a partnership with Australia for an over-the-horizon radar system that can provide early warning coverage from the Canada-US border all the way up to the Arctic. The Canadian officials who briefed reporters described the system as the most sophisticated available. It's able to detect hypersonic missiles, and this system could be in place by 2029. In the meantime, the Prime Minister says Canada does need to increase military spending.
We will need to do more. We will do it deliberately. We will do it in a way that gets effective value for money.
The Canadian government is also spending $253 million to upgrade power plants, accelerate housing, and to help complete the first phase of a hydroelectricity facility in Nunavut. Carney also announced an enhanced year-round presence of the Canadian Armed Forces in the Arctic. Right now, the military has year-round operations in Alert here in Nunavut, but there will be other locations that have yet to be determined. Speaking on background, officials told reporters the partnership with Australia shouldn't be seen as a slight to the Americans, as the U.S. military approves of the radar system. But it's unclear what the reaction will be from Donald Trump. Now, today's announcement was already part of a larger plan to modernize NORAD, so it won't move the needle on Canada's plan to hit its NATO targets. Mike Lecouteur, CTV News, Iqaluit.
Meantime, the Prime Minister facing more questions today about his finances following a heated exchange with reporters on Monday. So far, Mark Carney has opted not to reveal what financial assets he put into a blind trust. But as CTV's Rachel Aiello explains, Carney says that he's following all the rules.
Mark Carney was pressed again today about his assets and the blind trust he placed them in before becoming the Prime Minister.
There's a discussion with the Ethics Commissioner for certain screens around certain issues, and that's a process that is underway.
This after a testy back and forth with reporters on the topic yesterday.
What potential conflicts of interest you
what
sought
possible
to avoid?
conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules.
That was an exchange Conservatives pounced on today.
The question is, why is he so defensive when he's asked?
Canada's conflict of interest rules state the Prime Minister isn't allowed to hold assets such as stocks or bonds where the value could be affected by government decisions. There are two options to address this: sell, or as Carney says he's done and prime ministers before him have too, place them in a blind trust where the office holder has no knowledge of how the assets are being managed. Confirming Carney has been in touch, the Federal Ethics Commissioner's office said within 60 days he has to disclose his assets, liabilities, income, and outside activities. The ethics watchdog would then work with him on publishing a summary of his financial information within 120 days.
I'll speak to you after.
But with the next election likely to be wrapped up before then, some say Carney could be more proactive with his disclosure.
Assets that are placed in a blind trust are known to the office holder until they are liquidated. And so they tend to have to be supplemented by recusal.
Today, Carney vowed to screen himself out of any potential decisions related to his former firm, Brookfield. That asset firm's latest annual report shows that before he quit to launch his Liberal leadership campaign, Carney held $6.8 million in stock options. Todd?
CTV's Rachel Aiello in the Capitol. Thanks, Rachel. Canada's inflation rate jumped to 2.6% in the month of February. That is a big jump from the 1.9% increase we saw in January. That's leading to new concerns that Canadians will get hit once again by rising costs. CTV's Judy Trin on how people are coping.
Most of the buildings too, industrial and construction buildings, they're not
on the minds of these roofers in training, getting steady work to pay for the rising costs of basic needs.
Price of food has gone way up compared to, say, 2 years ago. I have 4 small children, and it's hard.
And it's going to get harder. After several months of holding steady, inflation jumped to 2.6% in February, following a 2-month GST holiday. But now a trade war with the U.S. and a prolonged skirmish with China will drive up prices even more. On Thursday, China will impose 100% tariffs on canola to retaliate for Canada's previous decision to put duties on Chinese electric vehicles. Then on April 2nd, the Trump administration is expected to announce global reciprocal tariffs.
We will forge ahead, with or without the United States.
$6 billion in tariff aid has been announced for businesses, including a work-sharing program to avoid layoffs. But union leaders say more employment support is needed.
We need changes to EI to make it easier to collect. We need to make sure that EI is once you're eligible, you can collect it longer.
Last week, the Bank of Canada warned there was little it could do to keep inflation down.
Monetary policy cannot offset the impacts of a trade war.
To increase productivity, economists at the C.D. Howe Institute are calling on the government to cut personal and corporate taxes while raising the GST from 5% to 7%.
We do propose to raise the GST to pay for those tax cuts.
With a snap election expected, fiscal policy will take center stage as voters weigh the economic proposals politicians put forward. Todd.
CTV's Judy Trin. And while those reciprocal tariffs Trump has vowed on U.S. trading partners around the world on April the 2nd are short on specifics, it's left Canada with a specific goal in mind. Here's more from Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
What we're working at is making sure that we're first in line for exemptions. And we told the administration very clearly how we feel these tariffs are going to hurt the American people.
And on Fox News tonight, Donald Trump called Canada one of the nastiest countries to deal with on trade, once again calling the former Prime Minister, quote, Governor Trudeau, saying Canada should be the 51st state. He also said he would rather deal with a Liberal than a Conservative. Listen to this.
The Conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a Liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
To Russia's war against Ukraine now, Russia saying it'll halt military strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. It came after a lengthy phone call between President Trump and President Putin. But as CTV's Joy Melbourne tells us from Washington, Ukraine is deeply skeptical of any deal.
President Donald Trump in a high-stakes phone call to broker a peace deal, something he promised he could do in just 24 hours.
But it's a bad situation in Russia, and it's a bad situation in Ukraine.
Calling his 2-hour marathon call with Russia's Vladimir Putin a very good and productive one, where the leaders agreed Ukraine and Russia would stop attacking energy infrastructure for 30 days, and negotiations would begin for a maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. Not a full ceasefire that Ukraine has already signed on to, but relief in a war that has already cost thousands of lives. Visiting a military cemetery, President Volodymyr Zelensky honoring the soldiers killed after Russia invaded. Zelensky wasn't part of that phone call and doesn't trust Putin. He wants a conversation with Trump, adding he supports any kind of halt to the fighting.
It looks like that Putin outwitted Trump in this call by being able to agree to a very modest measure. That's the cessation of attacks on infrastructure and energy sources. And there will be advantages for Ukraine if its nuclear and other facilities were not targeted by Russia.
Putin seemed to give just enough for Trump to call this a win, but demands a complete stop of all military aid to Ukraine. European leaders call the talks a good start, but they had no input either, skeptical of President Trump's warming relationship with Russia.
Putin, I don't think will stop until he is stopped. Any concession you give him, it's not going to warm his heart. He's just going to pocket that concession and demand more.
Despite Putin's pledge and a promise of a prisoner exchange tomorrow, the fighting still continues on the front lines. Todd?
Joy Malbon in Washington. Thanks, Joy. Meantime, that lengthy call also shifted to sports, both sides toying with the idea of staging a series of hockey games between the United States and Russia. The National Hockey League saying it was not consulted about it, in a statement saying, quote, obviously we were not a party to those discussions and it would be inappropriate for us to comment at this time. Israel's prime minister says attacks will continue until Hamas is destroyed and hostages freed, as a new wave of Israeli airstrikes on Gaza killed more than 400 Palestinians. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin with an already fragile ceasefire being shattered.
Drones and explosions shattered 6 weeks of relative calm in Gaza. Israeli strikes killed hundreds, according to local health authorities. Palestinians sheltering at a school say a bomb hit part of a complex where families were huddling. Some fear this crushed any hope for peace. People were sleeping peacefully, she says, and they woke up to death. The White House was consulted and voiced support for the strikes. Israel says it took aim at military targets and that the assault came after Hamas's repeated refusal to release the rest of the hostages. The Israeli defense minister said that if Hamas did not immediately release all the kidnapped men and women, the gates of hell would open. The UN's emergency relief coordinator addressed the Security Council.
Overnight, our worst fears materialized. Airstrikes resumed across the entire Gaza Strip.
Fear of an all-out war gripped families of the roughly 24 hostages believed to be alive.
We need a ceasefire to release my brothers. They are still alive, and we need everything to bring them back.
Israel is trying to get its hostages back.
Montreal Rabbi Asher Jacobson recently met with families of hostages in Israel. He says applying pressure to Hamas is a double-edged sword.
If you do nothing, you gain nothing. And then you have to go through this attack and target Hamas militants and leaders, and there's always collateral damage. We've seen, sadly.
Messages against the bombings were scrawled on the gates of McGill University. And Ibrahim Mana in Halifax says many of his family members are in Gaza. The renewed bombings have heightened his fears once again.
It's very scary. Especially what happened right now early in the morning at the wake of dawn when this attack has happened.
Israel and Hamas accused one another of breaking the truce. And one Israeli official said that from now on, negotiations would only proceed under fire. Genevieve Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
The Trump administration has released previously classified documents on the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Tens of thousands of documents have been released, so it will take some time to go through them all. It's still unclear whether the new documents will challenge the long-held findings that a gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, acted alone.
Those who might think that something like this is justifiable or potentially even admirable, we want to let you know it's a federal crime. We will come after you.
An FBI investigation is underway into a surge of attacks targeting Tesla vehicles and infrastructure, a wave of vandalism since Elon Musk began his White House role. Musk firing back tonight, reposting fire videos on social media, calling it terrorism. Meanwhile, Vancouver has removed Tesla from its auto show. That show begins tomorrow, the Vancouver Auto Show citing safety concerns. All right, coming up for us.
Jeff wants to control people. It's not physically possible to brainwash someone online.
An exclusive look inside the controversial spiritual group that some call a cult. Are they gurus, grifters, or cult leaders? In a worldwide exclusive, W5's Avery Haynes has been invited into the inner circle of a controversial spiritual group. It's called Twin Flames Universe, a mostly online group that guarantees if you pay for their program, you'll find love.
Nurse Simmer Sakon owns a cosmetic clinic in West End, Toronto. She's one of about 2,000 paying students of Twin Flames Universe.
I booked a free consultation, had a good connection, and that was kind of my start of being part of the Twin Flame Universe community.
Over the last year and a half, that free consultation has cost her about $20,000 in courses and one-on-one coaching, all online.
I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. Very, very gradually over time, I actually started to feel my feelings.
Simmer still hasn't found her twin flame, but insists it's money well spent.
I truly believe that I will manifest and attract my partner in a very peaceful, healthy way, hopefully, yes.
See that phone on the table? There's a woman on the other end monitoring every word.
Rebecca?
Rebecca is a crisis management expert based in the U.S.
Like, they're not a cult?
Rebecca arranged this interview for Twin Flames Universe in the wake of an avalanche of articles and docuseries, all focusing on the outrageous online behavior of the founders, Canadian Shalia Devine and her husband, Jeff Devine.
Big scary Jeff and Shalia. Woo! We're gonna come and eat your children!
You're my student. You do not school me. Where freedom is abused, it will be taken from you.
Your choice has been out of order, so you can make a new choice.
Twin Flames Universe first approached me by email, denying they are a high-powered cult and requesting an open and honest conversation. At their headquarters in northern Michigan, I was invited into their mansion.
It's traumatizing to have the whole world bearing down on you, and you go online and there's hundreds and hundreds of hateful comments.
The PR company shared some of those hateful comments.
I can't wait to see you and your hippo of a wife go to jail.
You little tiny Corvette wipe. I hope you both get eaten by rabid dogs.
Tick, tick, tick. Your time is running out. I'm coming for you.
The IRS, FBI, state, and local police have all been contacted about Twin Flames Universe over allegations of forced labor, tax evasion, and even brainwashing followers into changing genders. They have not been charged with any crimes.
Jeff wants to control people. He likes to have every aspect of their lives controlled.
Keely Griffin is the highest-ranking follower to defect from the Twin Flames Universe.
He has a very sick mind. I think he gets off on seeing them become his creation.
Current students deny they're brainwashed.
It's not physically possible to brainwash someone online.
No, we're not a cult.
No one forced me to change my name, change my gender, have surgeries.
In part two, tomorrow, shocking allegations from former followers who accuse Jeff and Shalia Devine of controlling everything from their love lives to their genders. All right, still ahead for us. Blue Jays fans change their spring migration patterns. Donald Trump's trade war against Canada can leave some Canadians feeling powerless. One way to send a message is to avoid trips to the United States, and new numbers show a growing trend. As CTV's Alex Scarpa found out, that includes sports fans.
This is our Blue Jays game we went to see in Kansas City with the Royals.
Tony Ranella has good memories of his past trips down south. His tour company took busloads of Canadian baseball fans to see the Blue Jays play in the U.S. an annual pilgrimage that dates way back.
1989, so it's getting closer to almost 40 years.
He was planning to take a tour group to see the Jays play in Minnesota this June, but due to rising political tensions, he canceled the trip.
It saddens me that we've gotten to this point. Unless these tensions subside, I don't know how things are going to get better.
Data shows that Rinella is not the only one canceling travel plans to our southern neighbor. Numbers from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows a drop of nearly 500,000 visitors crossing land borders from Canada to the U.S. in February compared to last year. A recent Leger survey found 36% of respondents with U.S. travel plans also said they already canceled them.
They're just not looking to travel to the U.S.
Tim McDonnell owns Elite Sports Tours in Toronto. His company recently slashed 5 of their 8 baseball trips to the U.S.
Since Trump has taken office, the feedback as far as inquiries or even bookings has been pretty abysmal.
As for Rinella, he isn't giving up. He's just making plans for games within Canada.
A flight to Toronto and 3 nights hotel is going to cost just as much as going down to Minneapolis. I'd rather fly to Toronto.
Rinella also says that for as long as Trump remains in the White House, he won't plan any trips down south. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
So it goes. Still ahead, a hero's homecoming from space and the unplanned welcome crew that were waiting in the water. It was a perfect homecoming, even if it was 9 months late. 2 NASA astronauts stranded since last summer are finally back home. CTV's Heather Wright on a space odyssey that raised questions about the limits of technology.
An 8-day trip to space ended with a splash tonight, 286 days later.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
A SpaceX capsule carrying Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore touched down in the calm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, concluding a saga that began last June. That's when the pair took off from Cape Canaveral, the first 2 astronauts to be carried into space on Boeing's Starliner, a crucial test for the company in order for its capsule to receive NASA approval for routine flights.
Let's get going.
But issues with Starliner's propulsion system led to cascading delays in getting home.
Merry Christmas!
As weeks stretched to months, NASA made the decision to bring them home on a SpaceX craft as part of the regular crew rotation schedule.
Butch and Sonny will return with Crew 9 next February, and that Starliner will return uncrewed.
The failed test mission was a blow to Boeing's space unit, which has struggled to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX Crew Dragon. The situation even became political when U.S. President Donald Trump and his close advisor Musk tried to place blame on former President Joe Biden for the failed mission without giving any evidence.
Posing for some final photos.
And so today, in their re-entry suits, Wilmore and Williams posed for a few last photos before beginning the 17-hour journey back to Earth.
Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just 1 or 2.
A pod of dolphins capping off a homecoming 9 months in the making. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
And welcome home to them. That's our newscast for tonight. For all of us here at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again right here tomorrow.